Jesus. There's power in the name of.
The next reason why God would not intervene at critical moments is to discipline us for bad decisions. Yes, God is letting you know that there is a price to pay for being stubborn, for being foolish. In Proverbs chapter 1, verse 28, it says this: Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. So when we decide and we're determined and we are just totally ignoring and abandoning what God's word says, he says, when you call on me, I'm not going to answer you. I'm not going to be. And I understand we all do this. We all did something that was a very, very poor move, a very bad decision. And then we want God to come to our rescue. We want God to pull us out of the fire. Yes. We jumped in the fire on our own. Maybe it didn't appear to be fire. It looked like a nice, cool lake that we jumping in to take a swim. But now realizing that the temperature is going to rise, that the fire is going to raise up, that the consequence is going to come to bear. And so we go in it. And yes, it's seductive. Yes, it's enticing. But we already know that we've been instructed, don't do this. Don't go that way. And so now that we're under the pressure, the fire is being turned up, and we don't like what we're going through, all of a sudden we're crying out, Lord save me, Lord deliver me, Lord make a way, Lord come to my rescue. There are times that God said, no, you stew in your trouble.
That's right. Amen.
He uses what they call tough love. But sometimes you got to go through what you're going through so you'll learn the importance of obeying God. So it's to teach us to walk by faith. So when he don't intervene when you have made a bad decision, and so now you're experiencing all of the pain and the agony and all the discomfort of what you have done yourself, what he's trying to do also, not only to discipline us or chasten us, but also to teach us to walk by faith. Because during those times that you're learning this, during those times that you're going through this difficult season in your life, when you begin to say, okay, Lord, I know I made the mistake. I know I messed up, Lord. I know I'm going through this because of my decision and my choice. But Lord, right now, I'm surrendering my life to you. I'm going to obey your word. I'm going to follow you. I don't know when I'm going to get out of this. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. But I know you're going to bring me out of this. I know you're going to open the door. And sometimes, because now, Lord, I'm walking in line with your word and with your will. And I'm trusting you.
Yes, yes.
So while he's not intervening, he's yet teaching us how to walk by faith. Oh my God. And it's hard to walk by faith when you're by yourself. It's hard to walk by faith when you're ashamed. It's hard to walk by faith when you're going through trouble and you know it's your fault. It's hard, but yet that's the time to begin to exercise your faith in the mercy and the grace and the kindness of God. There's a God that he honors his word. And when the time comes, all of a sudden he provides you a way of escape out of your trouble. So walk by faith. Though everything around you is crumbling, though all the problems seem to be crowding you in, walk by faith. Oh yes, I know it's my fault. I know I did this here, but I believe my God could bring me out of this. Yeah, he may not be answering my prayer right now, but he's teaching me how to walk by faith. Teaching me the consequences of making bad decisions and being stubborn in my disposition and attitude.
Yes.
2 Corinthians chapter 12, it says this here. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. See, also another reason why he don't intervene sometimes is to prevent pride in our life. To prevent pride. Where you think everything you do is right. Nobody can tell you anything. You can make your own choices. You can live your own life, and no one have a right to point out in your life points of error. No one should come and correct me. Why? Because I'm my own person. And so therefore, many times, he will not step in. But also at the same time, while he's trying to deal with your pride, he also trying to show you his grace. Yes, he's showing you his grace, that he's not throwing you away. He has not totally turned his back on you. He's still trying to get you to acknowledge that you need him, and that when you humble yourself, when you surrender, when you submit to him, he's able to eventually, after you learned your lesson, say, welcome back, my child. Y'all remember the story of what we call the prodigal son? There in Luke chapter 15. That there was a young man, a man who had two sons. And the younger son came to him one day and said, Father, listen, I can't wait for you to die. I want my inheritance now. And so the father considered the situation and said, okay. And he divided his inheritance between his younger son and the older son. So now the younger son, after a little while, after he got the money, under his control, he packed his bags and he left his father. And he goes down to another country where he's no longer under the influence of his father, where his father don't know what he's doing, where his father is unaware and clueless. And so he can live his life like he wants to without the restraints, without the constant observance of the father. He want to live a wild life where he could do whatever he wanted to do. And he did. And he just spent his money. He had a lot of friends. He partied. He enjoyed everything. But then, when he exhausted all his money, a famine hit the land. And when that famine hit the land and he had no money, he was bankrupt. See, and this is what pride will take you to bankruptcy. And what happened was he had to find himself hiding out himself to a man. And the man had him working in his pig pen. And while he was in the pig pen, he was still hungry. He was working, but he was hungry. You ever been there? You work, get your paycheck, and all you're doing is signing over for somebody else to take it. Every time you look, there's another bill, there's another emergency that arises, and just zoom, your money just going left, right. And sometimes he's dealing with our pride.
Yes.
And he was dealing with this young man's pride. And so now he's in the pig pen. And he's so hungry that he's considering eating the slop that's served to pigs. And he finally, it says this, which is very key to the whole story. while he's in that pig pen, he came to himself. When a person is full of pride, they're not themselves. And so what God has to do is remove the protection, not intervene, so that the person that's filled with pride will come to themselves. And when he came to himself, he recognized how his father had a house, had servants, and the servants in his father's house was living better than him.
Amen.
So he made a decision. I'm going to go back and I'm going to apologize to my father and ask him to take me in. Don't even make me a son. Make me a servant. And he got up and went back to his father's house. His father saw him coming down the road, stinking and dirty and messed up and raggedy. But the father loved him so much. He ran down the road, threw his arms around his son, and embraced his son. And then he threw a party to receive his son back. But understand, the father had to wait for the son to come to himself.
Yes.
God understands that if he rescued us too soon, we haven't got to the place of full humbleness before him. We have not really gotten to the place that we recognize how much we need him. And so he'll allow us to get to the point where we bow our heads in humility and willing to come to him and say, Father, I'm sorry, I messed up. He's willing to throw his arms open and to embrace us, and then he cleans us up and he throws a party. That's the blessing of the Lord, and that's when you'll be able to appreciate a God that knows when it's the right time to divinely intervene in our lives.
Yes.
See, there's two things that divine intervention will not do. There's two things that it will not do. First of all, divine intervention will not change your desires. No, it won't change your desire. It won't make you stop eating the things that you know you should not eat. God will sometimes maybe have you run out of whatever it is that the doctor told you to leave alone. But because you got some money in your pocket, you're going to get up in the middle of the night and go out to find something to put it back in your... It won't change your desire. There's some times that there are people in our lives that should not be in our lives, relationships that we find ourselves engaged in that we should not be involved in. And God would intervene and try to open our eyes to see how this relationship is not good for you. How this person is not looking out for your best interest, and how you are not living according to the teaching and the guidelines and what the Spirit or the Scripture said is the right way to do. And so what God will do, he'll divinely intervene, maybe through someone, maybe through a situation, or maybe you may see something in the situation that give you a pause. But he won't change your desire. You may still want that person. You may still, because maybe you don't want to be, I can't be alone. I gotta have somebody. And sometimes that person you gotta have will hit you upside your head, that will beat you, that will take advantage of you, that will sometimes go behind your back with others.
Amen.
Divine intervention won't change your desires. I mean, there's times that he's intervened where it's interesting. Someone could be in the hospital and they're suffering with emphysema or with something as a result of smoking till they damage their lungs. And the doctor said, listen, if you smoke anymore, you're going to kill yourself. They could be there in the hospital bed begging for a cigarette. There's people who have alcohol problems. They're alcoholics, and they tell you, you keep it, that cirrhosis of the liver is going to take you out of here but yet they got to have that last drink. Divine intervention will not make you change your desires. That's something you have to decide. Lord, I need to change this here. Help me change. That is a prayer that we can offer up. Lord, help me change. Lord, help me let go of what is hurting and harming my life and causing me problems. Lord, help me surrender to your will. There is a way that God could help you to resist the desires of your flesh. The Bible says, submit yourself to the Lord. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Notice, the first thing is you got to submit to the Lord. You got to submit and say, Lord, I realize that your way is a better way. I recognize that my way has not been good for me. Lord, I'm submitting to you. I'm acknowledging I need you. I need your help. I need your strength. I can't do this by myself. I need you to come in, Lord, to undergird me with the power of your spirit.
Yes.
But sometimes we cannot do things in the flesh. There's some desires you have that are not of the flesh. They are spiritual nature. The enemy have intervened and he have corrupted your understanding and you begin to influence in your decision. At that time, it's time to pray. It's time to believe God. It's time to turn your plate down. Say, God, I need your deliverance. The power of your deliverance.
Yes, yes.
God can intervene. God can come in, God can help, but you gotta petition him. Say, Lord, my desires are just too strong for me. I need your help, Lord. And when you show that you're sincere, you show that you're real, you show that you are being consistent, God will give you the ability to overcome those desires, those cravings that's in your life.
Yes.
But you gotta want it.
Yes, yes.
You gotta be willing to say, no, I'm not going that way no more. Sometimes we gotta get tired of ourselves.
Yes, amen.
You gotta get tired of the things you're going through, tired of the way you're being treated, tired of the situation you're going through, and say, Lord, listen, I know you got better things for me. Lord, I know you got a better way for me. I know you got a better plan for me. Lord, what I've been doing, the decisions I've been making, they have not been good and they have not worked in my favor. But Lord, I'm coming to you right now. I'm trusting in you. I'm extending my hands to you. God recognizes those prayers.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you, Jesus.
And another thing that divine intervention will not do is it will not change your will. It will not change. What you want to do, you will do. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you want to go out there and act crazy, you will. You'll find a way. You'll find a way. You say, well, I can't do that. You know, I don't know why. Oh, yes.
You know why, yes.
You know why. And whatever you make up in your mind you're going to do, you find a way to do it. God will not change your will. Listen to what it says in Matthew chapter 27. Matthew 27, I begin reading in verse 17. It says this. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will you that I release unto you? Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, have nothing to do with that just man. For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the multitude that should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will you that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather atonement was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See you to it. It's not that easy to wash away what we've done wrong. Pilate was given an opportunity. There was a divine intervention. His wife came to him and said, listen, I had a dream last night that just so disturbed me. That this Jesus, that they want you to punish, you better leave him alone. You better let him go. I'm going to tell you, the dream was so impressed upon me that I can't keep quiet. I can't keep silent about it. And so, please, Pilate, when you're sitting on your judgment seat, don't do harm to that man. And so Pilate tried to let him go. Pilate tried to get him off. But when the people began crying out for Barabbas, it became such a great accolade or a great cry that it just seemed to overwhelm Pilate until he ignored the instruction of his wife. He ignored the divine intervention of God in dealing with Jesus. And he allowed them to crucify Jesus Christ. There may be something that you think that you have to do. Decisions and ways that you have to go. Choices that you must make. Things you must do. But when God intervenes and gives you instruction to change your course, to do something different, to get off the road that you're on, you need to listen to God. No matter what other voices are saying, no matter what the cravings of your body is, you need to listen to God.
Yes, sir.
Because he's not going to force you to change your will. He will not make it. He's given us a free will. And every last one of us must exercise that free will. We can't blame nobody.
Amen.
We can't accuse anyone.
Amen.
We cannot stand before God and say it wasn't my fault.
Amen.
No, he will not force us to change our will. It's something that we must determine to do.
Yeah.
So finally, let's just look at 3 points. Why God intervenes in our lives. I guess y'all say, well, okay, finally he got to why God intervenes in our lives. Here's the first reason why God intervenes in our lives. To fulfill his promises. Well, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that. Because, see, God gives all of us promises. He gives us promises of his provision and his protection. He gives us promises concerning our destiny. And so he'll intervene in our life to fulfill his promises. But once again, he's not going to make us. He'll put something in the road that will cause us to think about what we're going to do. And if we follow the direction that he's given us, we're able to move forward toward the promise that God has waiting for us. We're able to stay on that road and that path that God is leading us to. He wants to fulfill his promises in your life. There's things that God wants to bring about in your life. And so when you recognize and when you see God trying to get your attention, pay attention. Because it's about his promises. It's about his plans for you. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, it says this. For I know the thoughts that I have for you, of good and not evil, to give you a future and a hope. Yes, that's what God speaks to all of us. He has plans for our lives. Yes, we have plans, but the plans of God is much better. They're much greater. You cannot compare what you want for your life to what God wants for your life. And so when he's intervening in your life, he's showing you the greatest blessings that you probably could experience. You may think a full bank account is the best thing that can happen to you. You may think having friends that just so enormous that you can't number them, you may think that's something good. You may think really even having great health greatest blessing. No. No, the greatest thing that can happen to you is to have God's plans for your life
Thank you, Jesus.
being fulfilled.
Amen.
It may not be something that you'll find on the lifestyles of the rich and the famous, but I'm going to tell you, in the end, you'll be so grateful that you have desired to have God's plans over your own plans. God will let you down. God will not let you down. The second reason why God intervenes in our lives is to bring about his purposes in and through our lives. Yes, God has a purpose for your life. Remember the story of Joseph? And it's interesting in connection with divine intervention. Because as you study his early years, you will find out how in the world could this show and prove God's intervention. It's not till you get to the end of the story that you recognize it. See, Joseph was the son of Jacob, and he had 11 brothers. But they were jealous of him. His father showed him more love and more kindness. And so his older brothers were jealous of him. And so one day they plotted against Joseph. They plotted it. And what they did, they digged the ditch and they put him in that ditch. And they were planning on killing him. And you may ask and scratch your head, how in the world could this be God's divine intervention for Joseph? But look what happens. That the older brother had to go off while the other brothers was there plotting how they would kill him. So the older brother comes back and he notices their plan. He said, wait a minute, let us not kill him. There was a caravan of wanderers that was going down into Egypt. He said, let us sell Joseph to them. And what we do is take this coat that he had, we'll dip it in blood, we'll take that to our father and tell our father that Joseph was killed. And so Joseph's blood won't be on our hands. And so they agreed with him. So they took Joseph out of the pit and they sold him into these people, this caravan that was on its way to Egypt. And you may say, well, how in the world is this God's divine intervention? Wait a minute, the story gets better. The caravan takes Joseph down to Egypt. And they sell Joseph to Potiphar, who was one of the generals in Pharaoh's army. And so Joseph there, and understand, he's away from his family. He's in a foreign land. He was a free man, but now he's a prisoner, a slave. And he's in a foreign country. And he's sold into, and so, but yet, because the hand of God was on him, he just prospered. He blessed the house of Potiphar. And everything that Potiphar brought and put under his management, it was blessed. But then one day, Potiphar had to go on a travel. And then when Potiphar went on travel, he left his wife there with Joseph and with the other servants. And the wife, being cunning, went after Joseph, said, come lie with me. And I know you're saying, how in the world could this prove the blessing of God's divine intervention? Just wait. And so he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't sin against Potiphar. He would not sin against God, because he knew it was wrong to lie with another man's wife.
Amen.
So Potiphar's wife, she being rejected, being scorned, she told a lie about Joseph. And she told Potiphar that Israelite that you brought into this household, he came in and tried to molest me. And Potiphar got angry and upset and had Joseph now thrown into the dungeon. This don't look good. But in all of this, God's divine intervention is being played out. Joseph thrown into this dungeon. And he's down there, and God makes it possible for him to be the caretaker of some of the other prisoners down there. And one day, the baker and the butler from Pharaoh's house are thrown in there. And through the gift that God gave Joseph, he interpreted their dreams. And what happened through what he interpreted, it came to pass. And so one was killed, the other was restored back to his position with Pharaoh. And then one day, 2 years later, and this guy forgot. He was supposed to bring Joseph's case before Pharaoh, but he didn't. He forgot all about Joseph. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes when you help somebody out, sometimes when you've extended yourself, people that you have come to assistance and you cared for, it's amazing how they can forget you. For 2 years, Joseph is down there in the dungeon worrying, when am I going to get out of this mess? I've not been guilty of anything. My brother sold me into slavery. Then I was sold to Potiphar. This Potiphar's wife lied on me. Now I'm in this dungeon. And Lord, where are you, Lord? Why is this going on in my life? 2 years later, all of a sudden Pharaoh has a dream. And Pharaoh's magicians and Pharaoh's seers, they could not interpret the dream. Then the butler remembered Joseph. And then the butler said, listen, there was a man down in the dungeon. When you was upset with me and the baker, there was a man down in the dungeon. And he interpreted our dream. Pharaoh, maybe this guy could interpret your dream. And Pharaoh sent for Joseph. He told Joseph the dream. Joseph interpreted the dream. And Joseph was now placed in second position of authority in Egypt. He went from the dungeon to the palace. Now he could begin to see how the hand of God was all in whatever he experienced. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Then later on, years later on, when the famine takes place, all of a sudden, who comes in looking for food? His brothers. And he recognized them. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And it brings a full circle to what God had planned. And Jacob was able to help his family out during a time of severe famine. His father died. His brothers came to him and said, listen, and they was concerned that he was going to look for vengeance against them. And they said, well, listen, well, our dad said before he died that you should forgive us for what we've done to you. Here's what Joseph said to them. He said, am I God that I should hold you in judgment? He said, but look at this. What you meant for evil, God meant for good.
Yes.
For the saving of many lives. Here is why divine intervention is important for us as believers. Because there's times that we cannot understand all of the problems that we experience and go through. Sometimes we don't think it's just, we don't think it's fair. We think God may have dealt us a bad hand. But we have to realize that God's purposes are involved in what's going on in our life. He says in Romans chapter 8, I think it's verse 27 and 28, he says, for we know that all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and those who are called according to his purpose. God has a plan for your life.
Yes.
God has a destiny for you. It's not by accident or by coincidence. The things that we are going through, the challenges that we're facing, the ups and downs in our lives, the good and the bad. And listen, we're not being blown by a bring about his will for us. God got a blessing for you, a plan for your life. So don't give up on God. Don't throw in the towel. Don't turn your back. Don't ignore him. Don't avoid the things that God put in place to get your attention, because he is divinely involved in your life so that you could experience his glory and his majesty. And you don't know when, but I'm going to tell you, he's going to reveal it to you if you walk by faith and not by sight.
Say it again, Jesus. There's power in the name